Hello and welcome to your favorite newspaper headline review show, The Inside Nigeria. In just about 5 minutes, I'll be reading to you interesting stories from 5 different Nigerian newspapers. My name is Tion Joseph, your regular host. Permit me to begin this morning with Nigeria's most influential newspaper, the Leadership newspaper. On the front page of Leadership this morning, the list says politicians move against CBN cash withdrawal policy. Senate rejects 100K per week invites CBN governor for explanation Tuesday. Threatens 100 agencies with zero allocation over 1.9 trillion naira service-wide vote. CNPP tackles critics of new CBN withdrawal limit. That is the story we have on Leadership this morning. To find more stories, you just need to hop on to our website www.leadership.ng for more. Now let's look at The Nation. And the list story on The Nation this morning says cash withdrawal limit policy. Senators, experts knock CBN. Senate forces Apex Bank fixes debate for Tuesday. Job losses loom. SMEs threatened. Good policy, wrong timing, says experts. That is the report we have on The Nation. Let's head briskly to The Guardian. And the list story on The Guardian this morning says CBN's cash withdrawal limits. Agents in uproar as Senate debates new policy Tuesday. They want us out of business, mobile money agents lament. Policy good, but implementation will be difficult, says BCAN. Huriwa, cash withdrawal limits can't help naira depreciations, will lead to job loss. That is the report from The Guardian. Let's take a look at The Punch. And the list on The Punch this morning says cash withdrawal limits. Senate agrees CBN chiefs tomorrow. POS operators get waiver to pay processing fee. Central Bank deputy governors to face National Assembly panel. Senate debates policy next week. CBN says no going back on new cashless policy. Allays fears of rural dwellers. Others. That is what we have on The Punch. To conclude the first part of the show, let's look at This Day. And the list story on This Day says NNPC, how we raise crude oil production from 900,000 mbpd to 1.6 mbpd. Clarifies 70% illegal refineries deactivated. Reveals Nigeria was losing 21 million barrels monthly, $1.9 billion before recovery. Says Nigerians will be shocked to know those behind oil theft when exposed. Declares suspected oil thieves undergoing prosecution. Blames current fuel scarcity on distribution hiccups. That is what we'll be reporting for the first part of the show. We crave your indulgence to stay tuned for the second part of the show. My name is Tion Joseph, and I'll be back your way 10 a.m. tomorrow morning. Please stay tuned.
For sponsorship and advert placements, please contact 080-3688-6158. Last Word Leadership Podcast Studio. You have the last word. For sponsorship and advert placements, please contact 080-3688-6158. Last Word Leadership Podcast Studio. You have the last word. For sponsorship and advert placements, please contact 080-3688-6158. Last Word Leadership Podcast Studio. You have the last word.
Inside Nigeria, keeping you informed on what matters.
Good morning and welcome to the breakfast edition of Inside Nigeria. Is reaching you on Leadership Television. My name is Winifred Ubebo. I'm your host on today's program. And with me in the studio, as you can see, is a political scientist and is also a public affairs analyst, Olamilekan Adefolare. It's always a pleasure to have you on the program.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much.
Good morning to our viewers.
Yes. Well, viewers, as usual, we have so many papers for review this morning, as you can see, as displayed on our table. First and foremost, we are starting with Nigeria's most influential newspaper, as we normally do, and that is Leadership newspaper. Let's see what Leadership is leading with this morning. Leadership says politicians move against CBN cash withdrawal policy. Politicians move against CBN cash withdrawal policy. Senate rejects 100,000 naira per week. Invites CBN governor for explanation Tuesday. Threatens 100 agencies with zero allocation over 1.9 trillion naira service-wide vote. CMPP tackles critics of new CBN withdrawal limits. I'll take that again. Politicians move against CBN cash withdrawal policy. Senate rejects 100,000 naira per week. Invites CBN governor for explanation Tuesday. Threatens 100 agencies with zero allocation over 1.9 trillion naira service-wide vote. CNPP tackles critics of new CBN withdrawal limit. That's the leading story on Leadership newspaper. Still on Leadership newspaper, there is a large photo on its cover, and it's about the upcoming Leadership Media Awards coming up in January. Have the editor-in-chief of Leadership Group, Azuisekwene Secondle, present a letter to former President Goodluck Jonathan during a courtesy visit in Abuja Tuesday. With them are Director Leadership Group Abraham Dazaya left and Group Managing Director Muazu Elize. There's a story. They say story speak, a picture, speak 1,000 words. And still on Leadership, we also have other stories from on its cover. It says we have recovered 120 billion naira from crime proceeds, federal government. While Nigeria loses billions of naira as customs e-auction platform collapses. As a story only beneath the masthead of Leadership. And Osibanjo says why Nigeria is Africa's best investment hub. Alleged Empower fraud, ICPC detains the branch. Article vows to rejig security architecture. These are the latest stories on the cover of Leadership newspaper. For more of the stories, you can get a hard copy or go onto their website www.leadership.ng. And still on the Nation newspaper, it has similar leading story with leadership. The Nation. The Nation newspaper. Nation says cash withdrawal limit policy. Senators, experts knock CBN. Cash withdrawal limit policy. Senators, experts knock CBN. Senate votes Apex Bank faces debate for Tuesday. Job losses loom. SMEs threatened. Good policy, wrong timing, say experts. The Punch. The Punch newspaper. Cash withdrawal limit. Senate greets CBN. CBN chiefs tomorrow. Senate greets CBN chiefs tomorrow. POS operators get waiver to pay processing fee. Central Bank deputy governors to face NAS panel. Senate debates policy next week. CBN says no going back on new cashless policy, allays fears of rural dwellers orders. That's the leading story.
Exactly. You know what was really roaming my mind was that it's like media houses and the current trending news have shifted focus from the political activities
to
now economic activities, especially with over 2 weeks ago that the CBN met with the president and the new Naira note was launched. The searchlight has been on the policy of CBN, and CBN has been coming out forthrightly with several policies, and one of them is this cash limit. You know, before this one, there was also a cash limit in terms of how much you can deposit in a month and how much both for individuals and for corporate organizations. But this one is coming out so strong in the sense that people are reacting. And the reaction of people is as a result of their mixed feeling about what the policies entails properly. You know, globally, the world is moving towards cashless policy, especially with the use of ICT and social media in introduction into the fintech opportunity, where people now do most of their economic activities and business activities with using the internet. And this has become something that we cannot be left out in the world going global, especially on ICT, fintech, and the rest of them. So majority of people who have kick against it are people maybe they are yet to understand where the world is. One particular activist was talking about is a human rights violation. I was like, this guy has to be someone that traveled abroad. How much of cash does he have in his pocket if in a foreign country like US or UK? Most of the things you deal with internet, you deal with online payment, and this is what the CBN is driving towards, and we cannot be left out. And again, the Senate aspect of it.
Yes, you cannot be. But if I may interject, you have about over 70% of rural dwellers in Nigeria. So how do you most of them constitute the unbanked segment of nation's. So how do you now do that? How do you now incorporate those in the rural areas into the banking?
Very good, very banking. They are already parcel of the banking system, and we also know that majority of them are not even interested in the banking system, right? Because of that, and it doesn't have any effect on them. Because what the policy is trying to say is that if you are going to withdraw,
so when you are saying that it should be a cashless, so how do you now incorporate those in the rural areas?
The rural areas have its own economy in terms of most of the things that they do. The rural area people are not the one buying shoe on the internet. They don't need it. Rural area, they already have their own market created for them that you cannot. This cashless policy will only come in when we have an urban person in their midst or an intellectual person in their midst. But the key thing is that they should not use that to confuse what the policy will gain for us, because that's where I stand. That if you are using the yardstick, the rural area already have their market. They are not even most of them are not even going to the bank. They keep their money. If not for this new change of the naira now, that most of them are now going to the bank, and they are not even going to the bank. They are using their relations to bring their money to bank and do all those. And POS business has already gone into our interland. If you have not traveled to the inter areas of Nigeria, you think that POS is not there, or they are not doing online transaction. They are already doing it. But the issue is that we just have to make it in a way that at least they will not be affected, and that is the grievance of some people who are against it. But the other aspect is that it's a means to also tackle the deep corruption that we have been found in our system, especially from the political angle. For politicians who normally have the opportunity to stash away cash that's supposed to be meant for development, this is an opportunity for them to stop at this point in
But
time.
however, what about situations when situations arises, unplanned situations? Like for instance, you have an emergency on your hands that you need to maybe take somebody to the hospital. And don't forget that hospitals are notorious for asking for down payment before even services can be rendered to patients. So what happens in such scenario? You tell them that you have just 100,000 a week withdrawal.
Not 100,000 a week.
For
A
individual.
day is not a week.
For individual.
Yes, that is.
It's a week. Like I was
Let's go through the
So at the end of even if it's a day and you have to make that withdrawal, it doesn't it's not up to the amount, maybe obviously what they're asking for. So what do you do?
One thing is that you are talking about cash, giving cash. But what about the hospital? Do they have a account that can be transferred to? That's how the policy beats the argument that okay, people are the argument is that the policy want to limit cash holding of cash. Rather, using your POS or your transfer medium is still there. If a hospital asks you for 200,000 for a bill, if you have a cash of 100,000, the other part of that will transfer to them. That's what it means. And every organization have that means of transfer or using the online system of the bank. And that's what the policy is all about. So for people who are against it, you just need to look at it critically and look at the long-term benefit of it, not the immediate challenge that we are going to confront.
But don't you think that is a bit too? The pressure is too much, considering the fact that it's just Nigeria just redesigned its naira policy, and now you are having this policy in tandem with it. I mean, it's going to have a negative consequences because of the time factor. You are just redesigning the naira notes, and at the same time, you are not even imposing this withdrawal system.
I agree to an extent, but you must understand the two policies. One, a redesigning has its own target. The use of cash limitation have its own target. Now, both of them must work hand in hand, just like what your question is.
Because what is now saying that even though we are redesigning money, it's still putting a restriction on the fact that you cannot withdraw your money.
The thing is,
or even transact. I think
no, the transaction doesn't have anything to do with it. If you are going to the counter to go and withdraw from a POS person, it's 20,000 naira to get to 100,000 naira. That means you cannot withdraw more than 20,000 at the point. Now, for a corporate organization, 500,000, you have your check still waiting for you to use. You have your online transaction. That means you can transfer interbank transaction or to one person. It's still there. The only problem is that you cannot withdraw cash, and 100,000 naira. I'm sitting with you. I cannot go out to the bank and say I cannot go beyond 100,000.
But the system, like maintaining, it's not protecting those. We still have so many. Will I call them illiterates too? So how do you go that? Because even presently, you see, go to the banking halls and you see find one or two person asking, please, can you just help me to feed? They don't know. So how do you now take somebody that cannot even feed? So how would they now able to handle transactions, online transactions?
Definitely, that's why the POS has come to help us to reduce some of these pressures on the transaction, because it is now we now know the essence of POS, because
it doesn't take into consideration the peculiarities of in the country, like those that like I just pointed out in rural areas, and those that are not even literate enough and with internet savvy, not to talk of being internet savvy. I
think this is what we said when they were about to introduce telephone to Nigeria. Everybody say, people in the rural area will not be to
presently, I still go to the banking or I still get to fill form.
And that is for maybe form. If you are filling form in bank, that means you are exceeding a particular.
No, still fill form for people who cannot fill form. Seriously.
It happens. I mean, but the issue still remains that this system is not just a Nigerian thing. It's something that is happening globally. And if we don't take advantage and begin to incorporate ourselves to it, we may go in late. And going in late may cost us more. So I celebrate and I welcome this particular policy. But the only thing that I've pointed out is how can we incorporate our illiterate, our people who are not intelligent enough to manipulate this thing. But as I pointed out earlier, this is what happened when cellular phone was about to be introduced to Nigeria. And people say Nigerians are illiterate. Majority of us are in the rural area. Now, majority of people in the rural area are even using phone and are enjoying it at this point. So we should just welcome this particular policy and see how we can, the immediate challenges are there, but the long-term benefit is what I'm looking at.
Okay. Well, still on this cashless policy of CBN, the Guardian newspaper also has similar story. It says CBN's cash withdrawal limit. Agents in opera as Senate debates new policy Tuesday. It says the writer, they want us out of business. Mobile money agents lament. Policy good, but implementation will be difficult. Bikan Uriwa cash withdrawal limits can't help naira depreciation, will lead to job loss.
I don't want to agree with people who are talking about whether it's going to lead to job loss. They are not just being statistical about it. There is nothing like job loss. Rather, POS that CBN allow people are. It is now they will be doing their work effectively, because what is happening that they will be helping people to transfer money than even the bank. If you go to the POS now, since you don't have to go to the people that don't have, they help you to, and they will also be helping people to do the online payment.
But there have been reports that POS businesses, some of them, not all of them anyway, have been compromised. Many people have decried their money leaving cases of money.
Maybe network
leaving their accounts.
You challenge that. The challenge that
we've seen plenty cases.
Exactly. The challenge that will be emphasizing that CBN must strongly work on is that the network provider must up their game, because the challenge with the system, which most of us have on our sister agency yesterday talk, is the network. If the network are very effective as it is done in developed countries, nobody will complain. You send your money, you get your money. You get it. But if there is not a challenge of network whereby money is hanging somewhere and you are not getting the transfer,
But many people have complained that they have used POS. At the end of the day, they withdrew money, quite all right, but leaving there after some few hours, some money
start missing
from their account.
Now, what the CBN has put in place will help us checkmate some of these things. But the challenge is, if you have such cases and you don't know how to press forward, I also suffered the same on a particular network after debiting me for about 10,000 naira. Up to date, I'm not even returning. But because I didn't want to press forward, but CBN have created opportunity where you can press forward and you get the returns for your money. That is just how it is.
Okay. Following from this cashless or CBN's cash withdrawal limit story, we're moving on to other papers we have on our menu. We'll talk about THISDAY. THISDAY newspaper, THISDAY says, NNPC, how we raise crude oil production from 900,000 per barrel to 1.6 MBPD. Clarifies 70% illegal refineries deactivated. Reveals Nigeria was losing 21 million barrels monthly, $1.9 billion before recovery. Says Nigerians will be shocked to know those behind oil theft when exposed. Declares suspected oil thefts undergoing prosecution. Blames current fuel scarcity on distribution hiccups. NNPC, how we raise crude oil production from 900,000 million barrel per day to 1.6 million barrel per day.
Well, it's a good news that we're having it, but the key thing is that how can we sustain this 1.6 million barrel per day and meet up with the OPEC quota, about 2.3 million that they are giving to their members.
Okay.
So we welcome the news, we celebrate the news, but the key thing is how can we meet up and sustain this and meet up with the OPEC quota, because the OPEC quota is about 2.3 to 2.5 million for each of their members. So how can we get to that level? Now, for other part of the news that they have talked about, either illegal refineries, either people going to try Nigerian, and the key is another news about that they are the people behind the oil bunker or whatever. If they mention, Nigerians already know them.
You know them.
Nigerians already know them. They know that it is the elite that are behind oil bunkering. Ordinary people cannot get involved with it. So telling us that if we mention their names, Nigeria will shock. We are already in the shock of knowing that these are the people that are doing it. They are not far from.
But why is it that they keep shielding them?
It is because they know that the people who commit this crime, who are committing this crime, are part and parcel of the elite society. They're part of the elite society.
So then why are you shielding? Oh, because they are part of elite society, so they should be shielded.
Definitely, if they open the canker from this particular, if they open the canker of these people, you'll be discovered that it is people who help certain individuals to become what they are in the present government or previous government. So it's not like it's something that if you expose us now, we don't know where it is coming from.
You know, it's not just coming this oil theft, like somebody raised that oil theft started from this region. No, it didn't start. It has been there
for many years, during the military era, right from when oil was discovered in Nigeria.
And nothing has been done, but it has not been as high as this, so much so that Nigeria has not been able to meet its own quota, even half of it. Remember, we're supposed to even have about 1.8 million barrel per day, and we couldn't. We were even producing just less.
Although this particular quote is for the current budget, 1.6 million per day, but we know it's supposed to go beyond that.
Yes. But although it increased a little bit astronomically when those badges were discovered by
Tompolo security
since Tompolo's security outfit, it increased a little. So what I'm asking is that why? Okay, I just asked you, why is Nigeria shielding them, and are they putting? Don't you think that they should put checks in place to forestall future occurrences?
Definitely, they have been putting such in place. That is why they are having this record from the NNPC as they release it to the news.
No security in place, but Tompolo just came on.
That's a private
4 months
security.
ago, yes.
Though the government own national security,
But the government did tell us that they were budgeting 2 billion every year
for surveillance of oil
pipelines.
pipelines. The issue is that it is like what we normally see in local parlance, or what people will say is a beer parlor discussion among the journalists and among the Nigerians, and that money is just for the voice. At the end of the day, what will happen is that people who find themselves in government because the way I normally theoreticalize this particular issue about Nigerian states is that as you find yourself in a position of authority, somebody somewhere pull a string for you to be there, and that person is expecting something from you. So the moment you are there, you continue to protect. Yeah, in return, you continue to protect them, and that's what is happening. The people who have passed through to become GMD of NNPC, right from 1970s, 75 or there, about when NNPC was created. How many of them will say they don't know about who are the criminal behind oil theft in Nigeria? They know, but the issue is that they cannot expose them, because if they do, they'll discover that they are playing what we normally call in Yoruba the Baba Saleh, your godfather in one way or the other, for your emergence to be a GMD or a particular MD of a particular oil company. And check it, people who owns oil wells, are they saying they don't know about when their oil wells have been tampered or who committed the crime? The only thing we found on the newsprint is that we discovered that it is their boys. But like this last one, they discovered the ship. It is the boys who went to carry out the crime. But the main owner of that ship, how that ship has been operating in Nigerian water for many years, for about 9 years or thereabout, nobody wants to tell us. And the owner of it, nobody wants to tell us. Because if they expose it, as they said, Nigeria will be shocked. But I will tell them Nigeria will not be shocked, because we already know where these are coming from.
And a situation whereby Nigeria was losing 21 million barrels monthly, 1.9 billion naira before recovery. And
the money is going to which people's hand. And I think I did a particular opinion report on the oil theft in Nigeria, and it was linked to international organization in the sense that it can be easily solved by Nigerians, because it has an international collaboration with internal stakeholders who enjoy the loot that comes from it. So if we want to tackle it, one of the suggestions I made, that what is OPEC doing about oil theft in oil producing countries? It's not just in Nigeria. It is happening among the 16 members, OPEC members, and those other oil producing countries that are not OPEC members. It's happening among them. It's just like diamond that people normally steal from some countries like Sierra Leone that will find themselves in the international market. That's how oil product also is being done. It's found itself in the international market and being sold, and they will claim that they don't know about it.
But are you saying that with really federal government's political will, they cannot put an end to it?
It cannot totally solve it, but it will go to a level to solve it. But the key thing is that if OPEC cannot stand against oil theft across the world, there's no way you can stamp it up. Just like the diamond, blood diamond that have been happening in some African countries, like uranium now that have been stolen in Congo. Will the people say they don't know about that? It has international conspiracy about it. The same thing with oil theft. So to solve it has to be a collective global effort to put an end to it. If not, nobody will, because it is getting into the hands of people who make use
half of Nigeria's OPEC production quota is just being stolen away.
That's it. And it is not just oil. The same thing is happening to arms, weapons that are being sold across the world. Would the producers say they don't know how their arms are getting out of hand? That is the same thing is happening to oil theft across the world, and Nigeria in particular, because we have lost a lot. So our national state actors or state actors must be able to collaborate with international actors to be able to put an end to it. If not, it can't stop. The last one they discovered, that was the oil ship that was discovered in Guinea-Bissau or Equatorial Guinea. It was taken from Nigeria. If not that the country stand their ground, a lot of phone calls have been exchanged between the president of that country and The people who owns it and they also get, but because the stand is grand, and that's why we're able to recover that particular oil tank from that country.
So unfortunate. Well, viewers, we are going on a break. When we come back, we're looking at other papers we have on our menu. Please don't go away. Stay tuned.
For sponsorship and advert placements, please contact 080-3688-6158. Last Word Leadership Podcast Studio. You have the last word.
Inside Nigeria, keeping you informed on what matters.
You're welcome back. In case you're just joining us, the program is Inside Nigeria. It's reaching you on Leadership Television. My name is Winnie Fredobebo, and with me in the studio is a political scientist and a public affairs analyst, Olamilekon Adefolare. Thank you so much once again for your presence.
Thanks for
As you can see, we have so many papers for you this morning, but nevertheless, the next paper we have to talk about and discuss is Vanguard. Vanguard's headline story says floods, governors should account for ecological fund. Minister. Floods, governors should account for ecological fund. Minister says federal government plays its part. State governments must fulfill their obligations. Arts Environment Ministry generated and paid 8.7 billion naira into TSA. Nigeria to benefit from climate fund with action plan put in place. Ogoni cleanup in progress. That's the leading story on Vanguard. I will take that again. Floods. Governors should account for ecological fund, according to the Minister of Environment. Says federal government plays its part. State governments must fulfill their obligations. Arts Environment Ministry generated and paid 8.7 billion naira into TSA. Nigeria to benefit from climate fund with action plan put in place. Ogoni clean up in progress. That's Vanguard newspaper.
I think why this news is becoming so so current this day was as a result of the last flooding that we experienced in Nigeria.
Yes.
Many people are claiming that federal government have come out. There's a fund in ecological fund that state normally assess.
Yes.
So what have they done?
And it may interest you know that most of these ecological funds are outrightly embezzled by most governors.
Exactly.
We saw a governor that was also tried for taking the ecological fund that was released to the state. I don't want to call the governor.
It's interesting that at this point in time, we must focus on the state in this regard because they all have responsibility to offer to the people. Imagine erosion that is being devastating in Anambra State, for example. Now,
I think the ministers are coming up to speak now, especially from his own point of view. When President Muhammadu Buhari revealed to Nigerians that about how much was released to governors, so Nigerians should hold governors accountable
because our focus has always been at the federal government, but the state has a huge responsibility to carry it out. This flooding issue now, Kogi State was majorly affected, Anambra was affected, Imo was affected. Now, these states have their own budget, whatever they call federal, even their own state minister of environment. But what have they been doing? We have been talking about the federal government that refused to build a dam to assess or to take the volume of water coming from the dam in Cameroon. What are the states also doing to even have a mini dam for themselves? And they will claim they don't have that responsibility. They will claim they don't have the money. And money are being accessed through ecological fund. And it's very important that Nigerians must understand is that the responsibility is not just federal government. Even though we understand that when it comes to federal allocation, the federal government take a very huge chunk. But the states are also making internal generation revenue that they're supposed to deploy to carry that development. But they are not doing same. That's why you see that after a governor served 8 years, he become a billionaire and begin to invest money everywhere and owns property everywhere, including not just him, including his commissioners. Exactly, or go to National Assembly to secure himself or protect himself against prosecution, including his commissioners, including people who work under that particular governor. Most of us must put our spotlight on them at this point in time. As federal government have said, the ecological fund is very critical. Now, accessing it is even more easier than you beg fund, that you beg intervention fund, because that money, this particular ecological fund, is very, very critical and very sensitive to develop issue. And also to it, there are also international donors that are also responsible in funding some of these development issues, doing ecological expenses. So what are the state doing? So when they collect that money, they divert it to other funds. And the thing is that where I've discovered that this problem is coming from, because some of the states are going into debt. So since they are in debt, whatever comes to them from the federal location are being subtracted by the CBN as a result of their debt, because the debt were even claimed that federal government is owing. It's also collectively owned by the state. So when they now see a very easy fund coming, instead of them to put it into their right channel, they put it into other things that they think that it is more important for them or a priority for them at that point in time. So we commend the federal government for speaking out, and it's not just speaking out, show us figures, time limit or time frame that this money were expended by the state or collected by the state. It will go a long way so that we can really know that actually there's a fact behind what the minister or what the federal government is saying.
Thank you so much. Now, before we go, we're going back to Leadership newspaper once again. One of the leading stories is actually above the masthead. It says poverty stinks despite federal government's 3.5 trillion naira social interventions. Poverty stinks despite federal government's 3.5 trillion naira social interventions.
It's very critical, and at this point, it's quite pitiable that upon the trillions of naira that the federal government has started spending since 2015, that poverty still remains. You know, most of us who understand development issue have told the government it is not by giving money to people that it can reduce poverty. We have critical issues in Nigeria that would have helped us to reduce the poverty more than 60%. And what are those issues? Electricity. That is the key area that we can reduce poverty. And what is the means of reducing poverty? People having sources of livelihood. Instead of giving them stipend, instead of giving them money, even those ones that they are giving money to go and start investment, to go and put in business, when they put their money in those investment, they discover that the critical factor that will help them or that will increase their cost of production is electricity and cost of transportation. But government have shied away from this particular activities of particular sector and think that giving people money or giving people additional transfer cash or whatever will solve poverty. It will never solve poverty because we have not really tackled the main problem that will have helped us collectively improve the welfare of the people, which is electricity. Not just at the city centers or urban areas, including rural areas. Because when there is good road network for the people who go to farm, even though you are giving them money to buy input or material for their farming, but at the end of the day, when they finish producing and they spend so much to transport their product to the market, what do you think will happen? They will still go back to the poverty level that you thought you want to take them out. So the government should look critically at the tactics they are using. Because for me,
exactly, because it is a huge sum of amount, 3.5 trillion naira social intervention, yet it has not made the desired impact in alleviating poverty. We saw the report by NBS that 133 million Nigerians are in poverty,
are suffering, are under the burden of multidimensional poverty. And what it tells us is that not because multidimensional poverty talk about access to school, access to health, access to good standard of living, and even environment where you stay. It shows that the government are shy away from the real thing they're supposed to do.
Yet with this huge humongous amount of money, it has not made any impact
at all. Even part of it is the 30,000 they are giving to empower people. Those go and ask those people who are collecting 30,000 naira they are collecting, how much does it impact on their life?
And many claim, there were reports, and in fact, that is the story that made the cover of most papers today about a celebrity musician, D'banj, that was alleged empower fraud.
And that story, even though if you look at it critically, it may not even be the one that collected the huge money.
That was in 2016.
Because he was an ambassador of...
And they are just discovering after how many years. That was in 2016.
I think if there was a petition against the Empower Stream C, they have not been paid for how many months now. So it was that petition that led to this particular. So they want to know how is D'banj involved, because it's an ambassador of Empower. So how was he involved? But for me, I know that he may not have that means of collecting that huge money. But maybe what he may involve is that maybe one or two contracts from the Empower could have entered his hand.
Also, the civil directors that were involved.
And involved also.
Sketch report.
Exactly. So what at the end of the day may be set free, because at the end it may not be the main culprit in this particular board. Something might have been traced to him. Maybe he has enjoyed some
sketch report said that beneficiaries were inserted.
Maybe it could be through his own
some of the monies were
effort
traced to
them. So what we are talking about now is how to make sure that this poverty level in Nigeria is reduced, but not with cosmetic policies. Because the thing is that it is a cosmetic policy that we're just using, and it will never go a long way. We should go and check what India is doing about poverty or what China is doing about poverty.
And it's something that the National Assembly ought to have acted on based on that MBA. There should be monitoring and evaluation balance. You monitor, okay, this 3.5 trillion naira were actually released for social interventions. At the end of the day, there is a report from another parallel agency that says that no, 133 people are actually in poverty. So you're supposed to, the National Assembly, that is the time that you are supposed to call the minister and say, what is happening? Have you seen this report? So what is your take on this?
They may not even be able to face that. In the sense that these empowered thing that we're talking about, this social investment transformation, they have hands in it. It has been turned to a constituency project. So what will they ask her? By the time they put a question and say, oh, Mr. Senator, have you forgotten that we have over 200 people from your constituency who are also enjoying this particular? I did not call them and find out. So they may be hand tied in facing our body. Key issue that the policy for me is cosmetic. It doesn't have that organic.
Is it not the same empower that the VP usually go and share money?
Trade that money.
A day maybe before election.
Before election. Ask the traders now, where is the 10,000 they were giving to? It doesn't go anywhere. The key thing is that we need to tackle our infrastructural deficit. And what are those infrastructural deficits? Electricity, bad road, internet network. It will also aid economy. Then market, conducive environment for market, not the kind of market that governors are building up and down, building shops, and those shops they come and ask you to come and pay 1.5 million for you.
Yes, because it's still the elites that will buy them and lease it out to the poor.
Exactly. The poor will not even go. The poor will end up selling on the road, blocking the entrance to the market and blocking the highway. And that's what happens.
Inside the market,
you have the opportunity to park your car or even keep your load. So they must be able to tackle our infrastructural deficit, and that will help us to reduce the burden of poverty in the life of people. If not, Nigerians will continue to ride and rose and continue to swim in poverty.
It's so sad. Thank you so much for finding time to be with us today at the day for Naren Olamilekun. It's always a pleasure to have you on the program. And I look forward to seeing more of you.
Thank you very much.
Well, viewers, this is it. We've come to the end of today's program. Don't forget, same time, same station. Tomorrow is on that date. And I remain Winifred Ugbebo. See you. Bye.
Thank you for watching. For sponsorship and advert placements, please contact 080-3688-6158. Last Word Leadership Podcast Studio. You have the last word.